Well, I just redid the valve cover gasket on the M3 one more time. I didn't really see anything super obvious up there as far as the leak, so it's entirely possible that the banjo oil drain, where it goes into the pan on the bottom, might be leaking. I will have to look into that. But either way, the top end gasket stuff's all brand new. You can see the old over there. And I have the IS on the lift. This is probably going to be my next real undertaking again this year. I'd like to get this thing running properly. It is on Megasquirt 2 PNP right now. I know the AFM angle is terrible. This is just for diagnostic and starting. Right now when it's cold, you can fire it up, idles super low, and then it'll ramp up and then die because it's trying to keep up. I'm not convinced that the idle control is working properly. Also, I think it needs more fueling in the map. When it's idling and you grab the throttle just a little bit, you hear like a backfire through the AFM. So I don't know if that's timing potentially being off. It's just on a base map right now, but that's a little bit wonky. And then when it warms up, it just idles super high. So it doesn't seem to be affected when I plug in or unplug the idle control valve. Once I get my Toughbook working again, I'm going to pull some data logs from that and send them off to a friend of mine that does a little bit more with Megasquirt. Once I get this thing running a little bit better, and by that I mean pretty much perfect, I'm going to have it cleaned up once more and then offer it back to the original owner. The car market's gone a little bit bananas since I bought this, and I've done obviously a lot of work to it, completely changing out the engine with this refreshed SuperETA, putting Euro bumpers on it, detailing it, just kind of going over it little by little. If he doesn't want it, I think I have another friend in Michigan that will probably try to pick this up from me. So either way, I'd need it to drive properly. Maybe I'll fall in love with it once it drives well. But I think still on the docket to get rid of it because it's either this or Brexit. And it seems like I should keep the wagon more than this. So anyway, it does run, but it's not... Here's my key. It's not great. You hear that little pop? So not ideal. It's getting better. It is drivable, but not good enough. So like I said, this is on the lift, or at least in the bay now, so I have no choice but to work on this, or at least start it up to get it out of the way. So we'll look into that. I may throw a wideband in it temporarily just to see what we're working with as far as air-fuel ratio. I might even look at the timing maps on a few more M20 base maps to see if I'm in the right zone, and then I'll grab my my old Latitude, which I used to tune Blubzki, and that has the Tuner Studio Pro version, which can do the auto tuning. So if I do end up throwing in the wideband, I'll be able to over-the-road tune the fuel map with that thing just to get it a little bit closer. It's running, like I said, the stock out-of-the-box map for the 2.5, even though this is a 2.7, but I've got bigger injectors in it. So instead of 15-pound, they're 19. So I would think that that would offset the fueling difference, but potentially not. Still have the K-Series here, hopefully waiting to go in the 1600. This S54 doesn't really have a sure future. I think I'm just going to fill it with oil and shrink wrap it probably. That thing's just going to sit for a long time. S54s are impossible to buy right now for anything close to a reasonable sum. So other than probably needing rod bearings and cam bolts, it ran flawless. And then, of course, we have Kurt's old dropout, the N52 B30K. This is destined for Brexit. I'm talking to 30Fab out in Ohio. Really, really great guy. Once these things hit the market, I strongly encourage you to check him out because the stuff he's doing down there is bananas. But the main plan is, I believe these engine mount arms are the same out of an E90 as they are in the Z4, so I should be set there. Originally, the plan was to create a custom billet subframe that allowed you to run the rear sump steel pan in the car without modifying it. Unfortunately, it sounds like due to some international regulations, that's not possible. So the plan now is to put a billet CNC oil pan on this engine that will clear the factory subframe on the E30 without moving anything. So stay tuned for that. That should be really, really cool. I am still planning to stick with the 6-speed, but there will be an option as well for a billet flywheel that will let you keep your Getrag 250, 260, ZF310 if you already have your drive shaft set up. That car my wagon has a 293 in it right now, might even be a 279, so the 5-speed's a pretty good fit. But I honestly feel like this engine's power band and making that car a little bit slower might be awesome. And this thing might even get like 35 mpg on the highway with a 6-speed. So that's exciting, especially with fuel costs being what they are. I am planning to delete the air conditioning. Brexit never had AC, so there's really no good way to handle that. As far as the exhaust, I'm going to have to custom make something. I did clip the cats off of this because they were worth a ton of money recently, and it completely paid for the dropout. So I'll probably do similar things to what I did if you go back and look at Afro, my 88 Diamond Schwartz M3. So get a couple of 2.5-inch V-bands and make 2 dumps with a collector, and then get it as close to the block as I can with the new pan. Because right-hand drive, the steering shaft runs, I mean, it's a tight squeeze. So I'm really hopeful that between the E46 M5 mounts that I've got in the car already and these mount arms, we'll be able to get that to clear. As far as the electronics are concerned, I think I have everything. I'm going to swap to an N54 intake manifold and throttle body. That's a lot better clearance for the brake booster setup. The best top-end power, and you don't lose a ton of torque. It's just a lot more foolproof than the 3-stage, which I don't even have for this motor. Like I said, dropping air conditioning, so I have the belt routing all set. I do have this conversion harness. Normally I build my own, but this was shockingly reasonable. So I picked that up when the getting was good and the exchange rate was good last year, or maybe even 2020. I think this was less than 500 US at the time. And that will let me run the CAS module, which is kicking around here somewhere, the EKP, and everything just plug and play out of Kurt. Eventually I might move to an MSV 70 instead of an MSV 80 out of like a 325 or a 330 E90, and that will allow me to just fully wipe out the EWS and simplify the wiring a little bit. But this doesn't bother me too much. It should be cleaner than the 413 with the Miller War chip that's in the car right now. So still really excited about this swap too. Been a little bit disheartened with just delays and everything, but the guy's doing excellent work. So again, once that's all ready, I will do more update videos and send you some links because dude's awesome. But yeah, the 1600, like I said, this thing, I just want to hear it run again. So I'm half tempted to pick up another carbureted intake manifold, water outlet, and just get it running on a carb. Because it has a working clutch and working brakes now. So I could technically drive this with very little additional work. I just, the EFI and the M10 didn't really pan out because the sensor ground or something like that. No, the Ford EDIS is not feeding the crank trigger signal into the Megasquirt, so I'm not getting any sort of life. It's just, I'm going to abandon that probably, but I still have all these fancy parts I bought from O2 again for Megasquirt and the bigger M20 B25 throttle body. It's just one of those things where it needs to be K-swapped, call it good. Been tempted to electrify this too, but I think I'll probably do something a little less rare first when I finally start doing EV swaps. So anyway, that is a basic update of these projects. Blubzki, the Mercedes, he's not here, nor are the parts, but that thing is still making like marble sounds in the bell housing from God knows what, maybe the flex plate. I do have another automatic transmission for that car, which I picked up, God, I don't know, 3 years ago at this point to swap out. However, I do have in my possession, in my home, a adapter plate, clutch, flywheel that will let me bolt an SLK 230 compressor 6-speed transmission onto the M117. And I talked to the people that produce this, and once I finally do this video, I'll put all their contact information and their store link in the description, as well as telling you a little bit more about them, because they did do me a little bit of a deal on the parts just because I promised I'd plug them once I actually get to it. But these guys, quote, even with the organic clutch disc that's designed for the SLK and the stock box, they've got a twin-turbo M119, which is like the early 90s 420 or 500 engine, and the E-Class and the SL, even the S, and they haven't broken the trans yet. So in the Blubzki, it's got a factory 300 turbo diesel diff in it, and I think that's going to be the piece that's going to blow first. I think it's only a 7.5-inch ring gear. The car does only have 215 tires on it, which helps quite a bit, but you guys have seen that thing boogie. Anyway, the trans should bolt on no problem. I had to buy a new pedal assembly because I lost the clutch pedal that I took out of that car in 2014, which, man, that felt like a cardinal sin at the time, and it still does. But the car wasn't mine at the time, and after it's a manual swap, I'll finally sign it over to me, because owning an automatic isn't something I'm planning on doing. Anyway, it's basically just going to be fabricating a rear transmission mount and a drive shaft, and I've done both of those things before on the car, so we'll see. Shifter, I don't think will be a big deal. Looks like I can pretty much just run a BMW shifter assembly. The trans looks like it's made by Getrag, but I can't really tell, so once we get to it, I'll get all the parts down here, and we'll get her running, but I think it's basically get this car running, driving, and sold. And I've got my friend John, who's got an 89, I think, Zinno Coupe, completely rusted out. He's been driving it for 11 years, I think, including Minnesota winters. And the plan is to take the M52 that was originally in this car, that I put in his 325 IS, back out, scrap that shell, and put it in his 1987 Vert, which is a much cleaner car. Stay tuned for that. That'll happen at some point this spring. I think I have another SMG E46 M3 swap on the books, so we'll definitely have more content. But yeah, just plugging through, trying to finish all these projects. I guess the E46 Wagon, I got to bring that in and do the control arm bushings and a cooling system and that left front door. After that's done, that car can go away too. I really like it. I've been driving it a handful of times here while the Tesla's in getting serviced. And I do miss a manual daily driver, but it'll be these two cars on the block and sold this spring, hopefully, while the getting is still really good. Then I'll have a little bit more space, a little bit more capital to do these silly swaps. M3 is obviously not going anywhere. Really, none of those cars are going anywhere. So anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Stay tuned for more. Sorry I haven't posted more over the winter, but I really don't get excited about posting content that's boring or not fully realized. That white 5 Series really took a lot out of me. Just, day after day coming down here, getting sidetracked and impatient with the really, really rusty rear left hub. So that car is all gone. Dude loves it. Now I have room for more things, but keep watching if you have been. Appreciate it. And yeah, here's to a good 2022 season. And since we're on the topic of the project cars, and I'm down here for the podcast today anyway, oh, Brexit. I do intend to get all this crap pulled out. It looks like that radiator is pretty bad. I wonder if this had... Oh, it bowed out the bottom. This must not have had enough antifreeze in it. Very strange. That's too bad. That's really strange, actually. I definitely have coolant in this car. The plan is to jam the N52 in here and get rid of this turbo S52 setup. I had a Rev Limited member reach out to me from LA. Sounds like he wants the whole dropout, so that would be pretty cool. John's M3 is here. It'll go back to his house. The M5 needs nothing. That car is just awesome. I still toy with selling it, just because it is kind of so no questions asked. The blue M3 needs a pan gasket again. It also needs, I think, O-rings in the little fuel delivery tube under the intake. That's leaking a lot of gas. So before I do anything with that car, I think the injector problem is solved, though. It does run just fine now. 1M doesn't need anything. 850 needs the wide front wheels put on it. I have another set of these 275s and rear wheels to put on there. I did this a long time ago, but I had a bad wheel bearing, so it ruined the tire. That shouldn't be too bad. Mechanically, I don't think it needs anything at all, except for maybe capacitors in the general module, but it stays on a battery maintainer, so I don't think that's really much of an issue. The SL, the top is working again, still having issues with the heater control panel. Can't find anyone that's really willing to take a look at it, so I might pull the dash on this car myself and take a look at the wiring, because I do feel like there's an issue right there with something getting crossed, causing all that to start smoking and fry the magic smoke out of the little control panel boards. And as you guys might know, the R129 specific control boards for the AC are pretty damn expensive. So I think that's pretty much the whole fleet. Mr. Wags is sitting at my house. Don't worry, still there. The 124 is also sitting at my house. I have to get that thing out pretty soon. I have the Euro Compulsion Stage 2, I think Phase 2 tune to push on it now. And I also have a upgraded intercooler set, which they required that I buy, even though I'm really not that jazzed about installing it. So we'll see. There'll be more content there too. But largely taking a vehicle that runs and drives and making it not run and drive before making it run and drive again.